Hello, day 2. I want money. My future consists of financial abundance. This is a dream I set on, on my vision boards and my journals a long time back. And I've always wanted that kind of future. And I'll be honest, right? It's the G-Wagons, the Porsches, the nice houses, the travel, the jets. It's all of those things, in pure blunt honesty. But I'm 19 years old, okay? And when I zoom out of my life and I look at the age timeline, I'm like, there's 10 more whole years to become 29. The age where people mostly settle down. The age where people start taking their life very seriously and stuff. And when I think about how fast the mind changes, of how fast our desires change, our mindsets change, in just the span of a couple of weeks or a couple of years, I keep thinking, is this same desire that I have at this age going to be extended up to, say, when I'm 30, when I'm 35? Say later in life, right? So I decided to look at one of the most influential and richest people in the Bible, that is King Solomon. King Solomon, now if you look at his profile, he's not on social media, but if you look at his profile, King Solomon had enough gold, which will now be equivalent to about $2.1 trillion in today's currency. He had 700 wives and he had 300 concubines. He had every single house known to man at the time. He had every single chariot. He had every single palace. He conquered kingdom after kingdom. He was the man, basically. He was, you can say biblically in the BCs, he was the top G. He was the man himself. And he wrote this book called as Ecclesiastes. And if you've not read that book, it's basically his disposition about how life has turned out for him after all of these successes, after all of these riches, after all the conquests, after all of the women, after all the pleasure, after everything that he's faced towards the end of his life. This is his insight. And it's an incredible book. You have to read it, no doubt. But in that book, he starts off with the message of everything is vanity, everything is meaningless. And everything is meaningless in terms of everything doesn't last forever. So he bluntly explains about how he used to have all the money, all the women, all the houses, everything in the world. I think it's in chapter 2, he says in that book, right? He says, I denied my eyes no pleasure that it seeked. I denied my heart no pleasure that it wanted. There's a time when he writes about how he tested himself with a lot of wine to check how much pleasure his body could handle. He mentions about the 300 concubines he had. He mentions about how luxurious his life was, how he quite literally exploited the riches of being a king. But in that process of living that life, he comes to the realization, which we read many chapters after that, from chapters 8 up to chapter 12, right? He comes to this realization that beyond the money, there has to be something deeper. There has to be a mission. There has to be a purpose. There has to be a calling. And for him, that calling was God. I am not perfect. You're not perfect. All of these people that we see online are not perfect, right? We see a lot of, I keep mentioning Instagram Reels because that's the main source of what I'm about to talk about in today's world. It's like, we see a lot of riches, a lot of people with money, a lot of people that seemingly have very perfect lives. And it's probably beautiful, it's probably amazing to live that life. I'm not kidding, I do want to live that kind of a lifestyle someday. But if you zoom out, like I said earlier in this video, if you zoom out of the timeline and you look at the age, and you look at the years that are coming by, and you think to yourself, after all these cars are done, after all of the travel is done, after I've got these houses, after I've got all of this riches, after I've got all of the influence, the fame, after all of this, what lasts? What stays, right? And in my opinion, after reading this book, and I'm only 19, but from what I've learned, it's that you have to have a deeper calling. a purpose, a mission. Because it's people with the mission who are able to live a life that is larger than themselves. When you keep a goal or a lifestyle with a certain number attached to it, say I want this much money, I want these many houses, I want this. When you attach it like that, you're basically telling yourself that once that is reached, my life has peaked. And in my opinion, when you think your life has peaked, you're technically disrespecting God. Because He knows when your life has peaked. He knows when He's determined for your life to peak. And apart from that timing, you're not allowed to think anything else. You're not allowed to think that this is where my life has peaked, this is where I'm supposed to be. And when you set goals such as, I want this much money, or this is my life's purpose, my whole mission, you're technically making that exhaustible goal your purpose. And so my only thing after all of this is I wanted to contradict something that I said yesterday. I said no, this is my first video, probably when I'm rich someday I'll get to look back at this as my starting point. I realized that being rich is quite literally a futile goal, right? Because money comes along with a lot of things. Anybody can make money now. If you go on Instagram and you just start a reel, like have you seen the ones, right, where I want to prove to my marketing teacher that one single reel can get more followers than his entire course, and you'll get like 10,000 followers, sell them a product, if each for $1 and you're at $10,000. Money making is pretty easy. If you know the right tools and tactics, money making is pretty easy. But the deeper calling, the deeper purpose is what I'm chasing, and is what I hope you are chasing. And if that's not the case, I'm not perfect, and this is a reminder to myself that we have to start chasing that, the deeper calling, the purpose. Reverting back to what King Solomon has said in the book of Ecclesiastes, he says, right, I think it's in chapter 12, for in the end, there is only one duty for man, which is to fear God and keep His commandments. There's a portion also, advice to youth, where he talks to the youth of the world, which is very applicable even now. He says, you're young, stay young, be young, enjoy your youth, like enjoy the pleasures of being young. Like in the first chapter also he mentions, deny yourself no pleasure that your eye wants, your heart wants, but always remember that this is all going to come back to you on the day of judgment, that God is going to look at you one day and go, this is your entire life, this is what you have done, and I will judge you for it. So, all in all, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that we're living very long lives, but also very short lives. We're living very long lives in our own eyes. We have many years coming up. We have decades before if we are all lucky, if God wills, we have decades before we pass from this earth. And we have enough time to figure out what it is that we want to do, how much money we want to make, who we want to be with, where we want to go. We have a lot of time to figure those things out. But in God's eyes, our life is short. It's written in the Psalms, a single day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a single day. For God, it's very short. So, as human beings, as mere 3D mortals, whose sole purpose is to worship God, while we chase the idea of money, of success, of riches, of luxury, which is not a bad thing to chase. God wants us to live in financial abundance and prosperity. But while we chase that, it's also important to know that deep inside our heart, there is a deeper calling, there is a purpose, and there is a mission. Because if we keep that mission, it's not just that money is going to keep rolling in. It's that throughout our lives, we'll be able to have a stable mind, a heart that knows what it wants, and a soul that wakes up every single day excited because of that calling. So that's what I want to share today. It's about having that bigger calling. Because I'm not going to lie, I look at people like Andrew Tate, like Iman Ghazi, like Hamza. These are all people that I look up to because they have really helped me in my life. But when I look at them and when I think to myself, I want that life, I think, I think to myself even now, is that life the end goal? Or is a mission as big as theirs or bigger the goal, so that life just becomes an added bonus? So, in a nutshell, TLDR, too long didn't read or too long didn't watch. If you've watched this far, thank you, but too long didn't watch. Basically, on money, want those things, but let a deeper calling and purpose be the reason why you get them. Thank you.